Hello, my name is Miss Paivi. I'm a Zen teacher here at the Vietnam-Finland International School, and today I'm going to read from a book called Pippi Longstocking. This is a book by Astrid Lindgren, who is a Swedish author and a great author. Why I chose this book? This has been one of my all-time favorite authors, and she has written many very good children's books. And Pippi Longstocking is one of them. Beside Villa Villekulla was another garden and another house. In that house lived a father and a mother and two charming children, a boy and a girl. The boy's name was Tommy and the girl's name Annika. They were good, well brought up and obedient children. Tommy would never think of biting his nails, and he always did exactly what his mother told him to do. Annika never fussed when she didn't get her own way, and she always looked pretty in her little well-ironed cotton dresses. She took the greatest care not to get them dirty. Tommy and Annika played nicely with each other in their garden, but they had often wished for a playmate. While Pippi was still sailing on the ocean with her father, they often used to hang over the fence and say to each other, "Isn't it silly that nobody ever moves into that house? Somebody ought to live there, somebody with children." On that lovely summer evening, when Pippi for the first time stepped over the threshold of Villa Villekulla, Tommy and Annika were not at home. They had gone to visit their grandmother for a week, and so they had no idea that anybody had moved into the house next door. On the first day after they came home again, they stood by the gate looking onto the street, and even then they didn't know that there actually was a playmate so near. Just as they were standing there, considering what they should do and wondering whether anything exciting was likely to happen, or whether it was going to be one of those dull days when they couldn't think of anything to play, just then the gate of Villa Villekulla opened and a little girl stepped out. She was the most remarkable girl Tommy and Annika had ever seen. She was Miss Pippi Longstocking out for her morning promenade. This is the way that she looked. Her hair, the color of a carrot, was braided in two tight braids that stuck straight out. Her nose was the shape of a very small potato and was dotted all over with freckles. It must be admitted that the mouth under this nose was a very wide one with strong white teeth. Her dress was rather unusual. Pippi herself had made it. She had meant it to be blue, but there wasn't quite enough blue cloth, so Pippi had sewed little red pieces on it here and there. On her long thin legs she wore a pair of long stockings, one brown and other black, and she had a pair of black shoes that were exactly twice as long as her feet. These shoes her father had bought for her in South America so that Pippi would have something to grow into, and she never wanted to wear any others. But the thing that made Tommy and Annika open their eyes widest of all was that the monkey sitting on the strange girl's shoulder. It was a little monkey dressed in blue pants, yellow jacket, and a white straw hat. Pippi walked along the street with one foot on the sidewalk and one in the gutter. Tommy and Annika watched as long as they could see her. In a little while she came back, and now she was walking backwards. That was because she didn't want to turn around to get home. When she reached Tommi and Annika's gate, she stopped. The children looked at each other in silence. At least Tommi spoke. "Why did you walk backward?" "Why did I walk backward?" said Pippi. "Isn't this a free country? Can't a person walk any way she wants to? For that matter, let me tell you that in Egypt, everybody walks that way and nobody thinks it is the least bit strange." "How do you know?" asked Tommi. "You've never been in Egypt, have you?" "I've never been in Egypt? Indeed I have. That's one thing you can be sure of. I have been all over the world and seen many things stranger than people walking backward. I wonder what you would have said if I had come along walking on my hands the way they do in the farthest India." "Now you must be lying," said Tommi. Pippi thought for a moment. "You're right," she said. "I am lying." "It's wicked to lie," said Annika, who had just last gathered up enough courage to speak. "Yes, it's very wicked to lie," said Pippi even more sadly. "But I forget it now and then. And how can you expect a little child whose mother is an angel and whose father is a king of Cannibal Island and who herself has sailed on the ocean all her life, how can you expect her to tell the truth always? And for that matter," she continued, her whole freckled face lighting up, "let me tell you that in Congo there is not a single person who tells the truth. They lie all day long, begin at 7 in the morning and keep on until sundown. So if I should happen to lie now and then, you must try to excuse me and remember that it's only because I stayed in the Congo a little too long. We can be friends anyway, can't we?" "Ooh, sure," said Tommi, and realized suddenly that this was not going to be one of those dull days. "By the way, why couldn't you come and have breakfast with me?" asked Pippi. "Why not?" said Tommi. "Let's go, come on." "Ooh, yes, let's," said Annika. "But first I must introduce you to Mr. Nilsson," said Pippi, and the little monkey took off his cap and bowed politely. Then they all went in through Villa Villekulla's tumble-down garden gate, along the gravel path bordered with old moss-covered trees, really good climbing trees they seemed to be, up to the house and onto the porch. There stood the horse, munching oats out of a soup bowl. "Why do you have a horse on the porch?" asked Tommi. All horses, he knew, lived in stables. "Well," said Pippi thoughtfully, "he'd be in the way in the kitchen, and he doesn't like the parlor." Tommi and Annika patted the horse and then went into the house. It had a kitchen, a parlor, and a bedroom. But it certainly looked as if Pippi had forgotten to do her Friday cleaning that week. Tommi and Annika looked around cautiously, just in case the king of the Cannibal Isles might be sitting in a corner somewhere. They had never seen a cannibal king in their lives, but there was no father to be seen, nor any mother either. Annika said anxiously, "Do you live here all alone?" "Oh, of course not," said Pippi. "Mr. Nilsson and the horse live here too." "Yes, but I mean, don't you have any mother or father here?" "No, Not at least little tiny bit of a one, said Pippi happily. But who tells you when to go to bed at night and things like that? Asked Annika. I tell myself, said Pippi. First, I tell myself in a nice, friendly way, and then, if I don't mind, I tell myself again more sharply. And if I still don't mind, then I'm in for a spanking. See? Tommi and Annika didn't see at all, but they thought maybe it was a good way. Meanwhile, they had come into the kitchen and Pippi cried. Now we're going to make a pancake. Now there's going to be a panky. Now we're going to fry a pankai. I'm going to show you a picture at this point. So here is actually the only picture of the day. So there's Pippi making pancakes that you can soon hear of. Then she took 3 eggs and threw them up in the air. One fell down on her head and broke so that the yolk ran into her eyes, but the other she caught skillfully in the bowl where they smashed to pieces. I always did hear that egg yolks was good for your hair, said Pippi, wiping her eyes. You wait and see, mine will soon begin to grow so fast it will crackle. As a matter of fact, in Brazil, all the people go about with eggs in their hair, and there are no bald-headed people. Only once there was a man who was so foolish that he ate his eggs instead of rubbing them on his hair. He became completely bald, and when he showed himself on the street, there was such a riot that the police were called out. While she was speaking, Pippi had neatly picked the eggshells out of the bowl with her fingers. Now she took a bath brush that hung on the wall and began to beat the pancake batter so hard that it splashed all over the walls. At last she poured what was left onto a griddle that stood on the stove. When the pancake was brown on one side, she tossed it halfway up to the ceiling so that it turned right around in the air, and she caught it on the griddle again. And when it was ready, she threw it straight across the kitchen into the plate that stood on the table. Eat, she cried. Eat before it gets cold. And Tommi and Annika ate and thought it was a very good pancake. Afterward, Pippi invited them to step into the parlor. There was only one piece of furniture in there. It was a huge chest with many tiny drawers. Pippi opened the drawers and showed Tommi and Annika all the treasures she kept there. There were wonderful birds' eggs, strange shells and stones, pretty little boxes, lovely silver mirrors, pearl necklaces, and many other things that Pippi and her father had brought on their journeys around the world. Pippi gave each of her new playmates a little gift to remember her by. Tommi got a dagger with a shimmering mother-of-pearl handle, and Annika a little box with the cover decorated with pink shells. In the box there was a ring with a green stone. Suppose you go home now, said Pippi, so that you can come back tomorrow. Because if you don't go home, then you can't come back, and that would be a shame. Tommi and Annika agreed that it would indeed. So they went home past the horse who had eaten up all the oats and out through the gate of Villa Villekulla. Mr. Nilsson waved his hand at them as they left. Okay, that was the end of that chapter. So if you want to know more about Pippi Longstocking, we have a few books here in the VFIS library also. Okay, bye bye!